Welcome back to Biochemistry for Health Sciences. This is Professor and my assistant Cooley. So the first video, this is video 1.1, we're going to answer the question, who are you? But before we do that, I would like to acknowledge Educational Life Designs, ELD, for the use of the figures as well as material from their book, Medical Biochemistry, Molecules to Disease, Understanding and Applying Biochemistry in Healthcare, a simple and enjoyable step-by-step approach. Also would like to read this notice that the material in these videos is for educational purposes only and it's not intended for use as medical advice for the healthcare professional, patients, readers, or anyone else. So I'll give you a few seconds to read the notice before we continue. Okay, so just to remind you, this is material that is based on chapter 1 of the book, Molecules to Disease. So back to the question, who are you? What is the human body? Let's try to answer this question from the perspective of a chemist, of a biochemist. So if we ask this question to a biologist, or Cooley the biologist, she will say, well, who are we? We are basically many cells working together to keep us alive. So basically the human body, from the biological science point of view, we have about 30 trillion cells. So, some sources will say 50 trillion, 60 trillion, but let's say 30 trillion approximate cells, total cells. And there are about 200 specialized cells. These 30 trillion cells are composed of about 200 different specialized cells. And these cells include the cells of the 4 tissues, the epithelial cells, the various cells of the muscle tissue, cells of connective tissue, as well as the cells of the nervous system. And let us not forget, the human body also has a lot of these little microbes, which are very abundant in certain parts of the body, such as the colon. So this is also an important part of the human body, as we now know. So these 200 specialized cells include cells, for example, the cells called pacemaker cells in the heart, and the cardiac muscle cells in the heart, helps the heart function, helps the heart pump blood throughout the body. Red blood cells, for example, are specialized cells that take up oxygen from the lungs and deliver this very precious gas to all other cells in the body. The stomach, for example, has specialized cells known as parietal cells that secrete acid. As you know, one of the functions of the stomach is to secrete hydrochloric acid, and that's done by specialized cells called parietal cells. Insulin comes from beta cells, specialized cells known as beta cells, found in the pancreas. And then we have all kinds of immune cells, such as macrophages, neutrophils, lymphocytes, and many more that form part of the immune system that protects us against microbes. Okay, part of our immune system. And then we have cells that help absorb chemicals from our intestinal cavity. These cells called enterocytes. So there are many different types of specialized cells, roughly about 200. So the whole of anatomy and physiology really is based on these cells, these 200 different types of specialized cells. Okay, so anatomy and physiology is all about understanding the life stories of these cells according to Corley, the biologist. So let's see if you could guess where these specialized cells are. Here's a few examples. Let's see if you remember your biology. Adipocytes. Yes, if you guessed it correct, these are cells found in the fat tissue. These are fat cells found in adipose tissue or the fat tissue, which is located throughout the body. Osteoclast. Correct, yes, if you said bone. Astrocytes. Central nervous system. Cones. Yes, eyes. Keratinocytes. Skin. Good. Pneumocytes. Yes, lungs. Eosinophils. Yes, blood is a tissue. Sertoli cells. Yes, the testis, reproductive system. Schwann cells. Yes, if you said the peripheral nervous system. So here's some more examples of specialized cells. So once again, anatomy and physiology is all about specialized cells. Now, if you asked Cooley the chemist, who are you? What is the human body? Then the answer is basically a test tube with an oil part and a water part. And in this oil and water are many chemicals, including various inorganic and organic chemicals working together to keep you alive. So from the chemistry perspective, the human body, as you know, is made up of cells, but a cell is basically like a test tube with the water phase, and then there's an oil phase, and chemicals. There are all kinds of chemicals in this test tube. Those chemicals that dissolve in water, that like water, what we call polar chemicals or hydrophilic, hydro water, philic like water. So polar chemicals that like water will be in the water part. Chemicals that are non-polar or hydro, water, phobia, phobic, do not like water. Chemicals that do not like water will be in the oil part, which is really the membranes. Okay, all these membranes, later we'll see, is basically like oil. Very non-polar, very hydrophobic. Okay, so we have polar chemicals in the water and non-polar chemicals in the oil. And then there are some chemicals that are in the interface between oil and water, right, on the membranes. Part of it in the membranes, part of it in the water. And these chemicals are called amphiphilic. Amphiphilic chemicals. These are basically surfactants. In everyday life, we call them soaps, surfactants. So we'll look at all kinds of these chemicals, the surfactants, the non-polar ones, and as well as the polar ones. Okay, so according to Cooley the chemist, anatomy and physiology is all about studying these chemicals. So what is the human body? Well, to really understand the human body, we need to understand the lives of the 200 different types of specialized cells. If we can understand the lives of these cells, we will be much better in understanding the human body in health and disease. But in order to understand the life of these cells, we need to understand the chemicals, the molecular part of these cells, because these cells, after all, are made up of chemicals. Okay, so biochemistry, cell and molecular biology will help us understand the human body in health and disease. So that's all for now in this video. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you in the next video.